All right, welcome back. Spoken freely, all things and everything sports related in the great state of Oklahoma. I am your host, Glen Brockenbush, and it is an exciting time in Oklahoma. Maybe not for the college football fans, because boy, that is getting gross for the Sooners and Cowboys. But high school wise, we've got playoffs. We got playoff football, and it is truly exciting. And I'm always honored and happy to have every guest that's on here. That anyone would take time out of their day or night to spend time and talk a little sports and shoot the bull with me is honestly pretty cool. But whenever I talk about my guests, I'm always excited. But this one, like, truly, if you are in the high school sports community in Oklahoma, this is like a celebrity. Like Hunter Sheppard is my guest tonight, and he is. If you've been to a state basketball tournament, state softball, football games, you've probably seen him from beautiful Porham, Oklahoma. Hunter joins us. How's it going, Hunter?
Going great. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thanks for asking, man. Man, it is. I don't know about you. I know that basketball and softball are really close to your heart, but the football playoffs. This is like Christmas for me. What about you? What's kind of your how excited do you get for this time of year?
Oh, this is exciting because in playoffs, anything goes. And I've seen some years some 4 seeds have even went on a deep run.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was just talking to somebody recently. The fact that in Class 6A, the fact that we're allowing 6 teams from each district instead of 4 this year kind of adds a new wrinkle. But we're not here to talk about 6A on this particular episode. The small schools, that's always more fascinating to me because I feel like you have more parity and you have it's really cool to go to some of these towns that have beautiful, millions of dollar stadiums, but small school high school football I feel like is more pure. People care about it a lot. And I don't know I didn't do my research to find out exactly what the population of Porham is, but I know that it's not a very big school and not a very big town, and I know you cover a lot. You go to more kind of the smaller schools. What you've also been to, you were just at a basketball scrimmage, I believe. Was it up in?
It was in Moore.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So you've been all over. What kind of sets small school high school football apart to you?
Well, I know for a fact, like in small schools, sometimes you expect the unexpected. And I know, like 8-man, I've covered a lot of 8-man. I know some of those you can see some shootouts real quick. I can still remember in high school, whenever it was our homecoming night on junior year, that was a shootout. I remember it very well, a game against South Coffeyville. And how I remember as a shootout came down to a Hail Mary to win it.
Oh, wow. It's exciting. And, I know it's a little bit different brand of football, but I grew up in Texas and I attended a 6-man game for the first time when I was at my first job out of college. And similar to 8-man, like you can turn around and miss a touchdown. And it's really exciting. I think the 8-man level is going to have a lot of big games this year. I happened to cover the 2A state title game last year when Marlowe beat Washington, and I have right here, and I remember after that game saying Washington will be back, because I remember looking at their roster and seeing junior, sophomore, junior, and I was like, they'll be back. They lost some good players from last year, but I have right here a little slip of paper with my state champion picks at the beginning of the year. And honestly, some of them I don't feel too good about now, 10 weeks later or 11 weeks later. But I did have Washington winning 2A, and I did have Gore winning Class A. And that's why I'm here. That's why I brought you here, Hunter, because you played both those teams twice. And they have looked every part the picture of a state champion team. You just recently covered Washington again, and they just tore up, I believe it was Little Axe.
Yes.
What is it that Washington does so well for those who haven't seen the Warriors play?
Well, I know for a fact they're pretty balanced overall. They run it pretty good. They got a QB that can throw it pretty good. Their two tight ends are probably two of the best in the state. I know Coach Beller does a really good job with what he's done. I remember the first game I covered was when they traveled to Vian, which was in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And I remember they like dominated on all facets. I know they Vian kind of scored a little bit here and there, but I know it was week 0. Everyone's a little rusty early on. And I remember saying last year, I agree, Washington would be back. I mean, juniors, sophomores, that one tight end was a freshman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then Nate Roberts, as you brought up, one of the best sophomore tight ends in the entire country. And then they bring in David Alexander's son, from Norman, and who's also a big tight end, Cooper Alexander, I believe is his name. And as you mentioned, the quarterback Cooper or Major Cantrell can sling it, and then their running back last year, I'm blanking on the name now.
Cole Scott.
Cole Scott, yes, thank you. I believe Kobe was his relative, but Cole Scott did things to that Marlowe defense that nobody else had done, and so they look really good. I'm not sure if there's anybody that could give them trouble. It might be Rejoice Christian if they get that quarterback back. Chance Wilson was maybe the best player in the state for the first 5 or 6 weeks and gets hurt. His backup comes in and does really good things as well. They're probably the best contender to knock off Washington. Is there anybody else in 2A that you think really has a shot against a team like Washington?
Well, I know Millwood's been a team of interest. Their running back's one of the best in the state. I believe he just committed to Ohio not too long ago. Vian, like I said, they played on Washington. I know that's a potential semifinals matchup, possibly. Jones hung with Washington pretty good in a non-district. Really hadn't looked at that top side of that other side of the bracket as much, but I know like Eufaula and Sequoia Claremore are 2 other teams of interest, and interested to see what Idabel does, seeing they got a potential second round matchup with Rejoice, and they are on the same bracket as Washington, clearly.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at the bracket right now, and I'm gonna see if I can possibly do a screen share here. I'm not super adept with this sometimes, but it is something where it is something where I think that the Class 2A last year was certainly one of the best and most compelling in the state. Yeah, you mentioned Eufaula potentially facing Sequoia Claremore in the second round. Millwood getting Crossings Christian, and they would presumably face the winner of Lindsay and Kingston. I saw Lindsay play against Frederick, and Lindsay's got a big, strong quarterback who can run it. You look at the bottom half of that bracket, you're looking at Victory Christian or maybe Chandler, somebody like that, potentially facing Millwood in the semifinals. And then looking down here, Washington potentially facing Rejoice in this quarters is kind of I don't know. I don't want to say anticlimactic, but it feels kind of like when Cashin and Paul Huska were on the same side of the bracket the past couple of years, and we all felt cheated that wasn't a title game. The fact that Rejoice and Washington could face that early kind of seems unfair, but it is what it is. There's still a lot of really good Kiefer, Veneta, Jones, and Vian, as you mentioned, all up in that top half of the bracket. Class A, the Gore Pirates, I know is a team that you're very close to. You've seen a lot of. Man, they look really good. What has impressed you so much about them?
Well, I know this year they brought everything back. They lost their starting quarterback from a year ago, but their backup from last year, I remember he got injured whenever he was playing on defense against Warner. He gets healthy. He's the starter this year, and their offense has definitely been balanced. He can sling it. He can run it. They got a good running game, good receivers, good defense, and honestly, if this is the year for them to make a run, it's probably this year. And I know they've kind of got like snake bitten in the second round the last couple of years, and I know they've had to face Woodland the last couple of years, which a lot of those classic A5 teams are a hard out in the playoffs. And they could possibly potentially play again in the second round this year because, I mean, look at the bracket. They get the winner of Hartshorn and Woodland, which, like I said, there's a reason you never count the old A5 teams in the playoffs because we know the tradition with those teams.
Yeah, and man, I'm looking at that bracket right now, and it's just yeah, Gore potentially facing Woodland in the second round. That
It'd be
is
a third year in a row.
third year in a row. Bit of a trap game potentially. You could, winner gets, maybe either Crescent or Moreland. Don't want to count out Mangum. I think Mangum's coming on strong. And in the top half of the bracket, don't sleep on. And I don't know if sleep is the right word because I think they're ranked third in the state right now. But Hominy has really come on with Jackson Woods, and I don't know if that's a team that you've gotten to see at all, but that they're really good from people that I know have seen them.
I have seen a little bit on Hominy from when Squirtle did the game of the week. 'Cause I remember they played Cleveland and Tonkawa. I watched a little bit on those, and Hominy is pretty good. I know they're a run first team, but they've been pretty balanced. Jackson Woods got a pretty strong arm. They got good receivers, good run game. Them and Gore kind of seem like a pretty even matchup. Though, of course, like I said, Hominy's in that buzzsaw district with like Woodland, Tonkawa. Then you got other blue bloods like Morrison and Pawnee. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but they're still technically blue bloods given their tradition.
Yeah, it is pretty ridiculous in some of these districts. Yeah, I think you're seeing a little bit some of the new blood versus the old blood in some of those smaller districts or smaller school districts. I think that's what fascinates me too. Is there are more districts, there are more teams that make the playoffs, and you have to win more games to win a state title. And look at class 5A or 6A, you have to win maybe 3 or 4 games to win a title. You have to go through a gauntlet in 1A and 2A. And I think that Gore, I don't know. I would still say Gore is my favorite. Before the year, I said Gore over Ringling, and Ringling had a bit of a scare from Stratford the other night. They were losing. Carson Daniel I know that's a little bit closer to me, kind of South Central Oklahoma, but I think Gore, Ringling, and Hominy, one of those 3 teams will probably be the team that lifts the gold ball. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. And we got some really good first round matchups. Do you know where you're going to be this week?
I am planning on just going over to Gore Fairland just to be closer to home because I was in OKC 2 straight weeks. Washington Little Axe last week, and then the Moore Super Scrimmage, and then Edmond North Mustang the previous week.
That's right. Yeah. That was going to be another thing that I wanted to talk about is for those that don't know much about Hunter, then you're obviously not on Twitter and not really in the Oklahoma high school sports sphere, but unlike a lot of my other guests, you don't work for a specific publication, you don't write for newspaper, work for a TV station or anything. You're just a guy that really enjoys high school sports. How did you get into kind of video, doing video of games, and when did that start? And I know that one of the big difficulties is that you don't drive. You have to raise a lot of money for your own bus passes and transportation and possibly if you're going to stay somewhere overnight or anything like that. Like what are how did you start doing that? And what has been kind of what has that kind of been like for you over the past few years?
Well, I can remember how I started filming was whenever I was in high school, and I remember I was just a manager up until my sophomore year, and they needed someone to record their games because right about the time of the Cross Telephone Forum Invitational, and I actually can't remember what the first game was, but that's how I got into it. But whenever I first started, I was a bit rusty, but I improved over the years, learned how to do editing and whatnot. And it's like, it was right about the 2020-2021 season I really got more into traveling because I remember the Mustang Holiday Classic is how I got my upstart. And I remember I was a bit nervous covering it because it was a mixture of small schools and big schools. Because I remember on the girls' side, your smallest school was probably AMPO and Hydro Weekly, while on the boys' side, I think your smallest school was Wagner. So it
Mm,
was kind of a mixture there. And then I managed to pull through that one all right. Then, of course, the state tournament, it was probably my second consecutive year of covering it, but it was kind of weird doing it that year because I had to clear the arena and
that's
whatnot.
right.
And I can remember it was the year after that I really started to have to experiment with like setting up the GoFundMe pages and whatnot, kind of help fund where I stay and take the bus from Tulsa to Oklahoma City and whatnot. So it takes a little bit of planning in advance, but I usually manage to pull through that and whatnot.
That's awesome. And I think, you know, what it is that you do is pretty inspirational to people. I think about my time covering sports, and there are so many times that I would tell my friends or my family or my wife, be like, man, it's crazy that I get paid to do this because I would do this for free. And you basically are doing it for free. You are
Mhm.
you just enjoy going to these games and doing video. And for those who don't know, you also have your own YouTube channel. You post game highlights. You edit it, as you mentioned. Really, I've been really impressed with the editing. As somebody who, you know, took broadcast classes and editing classes, I don't think I could. I don't think I was that adept at video editing at your age, certainly. And uh, you know, it's just really a really cool deal because I think people should get to experience these things, and the fact that, you know, you have to request playoff passes and things like that. There's a lot of red tape that seems unnecessary at times, and the fact that you're still able to do all that is really cool. You started out just doing video at your alma mater, you know, in Porham, and then, you know, you kind of touched on it, but when did you decide, man, I kind of want to go outside of my little box here and go cover other games?
Well, it was right about the state tournament in 2020 for Class A and B. Of course, I remember during the COVID season, it was kind of difficult to get a read on who had what because I remember I had some pretty angry people at my top tens that season, but I'm all like, hey, it was COVID season. I didn't really know who had what at the time, but
Right.
I kind of had to learn as I go that season. And after that, it's like I was able to get more connections and whatnot, see more over the summer. And then as I went on and watched live streams of games, kind of did my film studies on teams and whatnot, and then went from there.
Yeah. A couple other things that I, you know, a little farther away from the football, you know, high school sports space. Well, the first question is more tied to the high school sports. I am jealous of you in that you have collected a really nice collection of uh, gear from a lot of these teams that you've gone and cover, and I've just always been too shy to ask for like a team hat or a shirt or whatever. Um, about how many, like, I remember you posted the Surreal Pirates, which I always thought they had a really cool logo. Uh, I know you had a Surreal, I believe it was a hat or a shirt that you got from one of the coaches out there during softball season. About how many free hats or shirts do you believe you've gotten in the past couple of years?
Oh, I'm not sure. I know I got quite a few. I know like the most recent hats I added was Edmund North, Tishomingo, and Caddo. Those were the most recent ones I've added.
Okay.
I don't know. I've really lost count. Like I know I got a couple shirts from Roth. Then I think I had one from Anadarko from a couple years
Oh,
ago. I
geez.
got one from Arnett. And I got a hat from Fairland and Dewar. I've pretty much lost count
There you
there.
go. That's, hey, in my eyes, that's a good problem to have. I'm
Hmm.
sure that if I came home with a bunch of T-shirts of random schools and mascots on it, my wife would have me throw them out at some point. But uh, she's over to the side. She's not agreeing or disagreeing. She's just looking at me. But and then finally, one thing that you and I have in common is you're a big gamer, as we see behind you. I believe you playing a little? Is that a little Madden right now?
Yeah, I was
There,
actually playing a little Madden a little bit ago.
hey, I'm not gonna lie. I've been playing a little bit of Madden recently as well. Uh, you started streaming. You post some of your you know, or I don't know if it's streaming per se, but you post a lot of your gaming exploits and stuff on your YouTube page. And it, I'm a big sports gamer. What do you have a favorite non-sports game that you play?
Oh boy, that's probably a tough one because I've played probably a mixture of RPGs and survival horror and whatnot. And
Mm.
even though I probably will rage if I'm playing on the highest difficulty or if I'm playing one of those RPGs that's just literally insane where you literally have to get good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing is I sometimes look at how much time I've spent on video games, but that's the way you get better at something is keep practicing and you kind of get addicted to it. You're like, all right, if I play this game 4 more hours, then maybe I will learn how to do this, do this one combo that'll get me past this boss. And I think I don't know. I think gaming gets a bad rep sometimes. I think it's a good way to let off some steam and some
Oh
anger.
yeah.
And as you mentioned, the rage part, I know that whether it's watching my sports teams or playing, virtual sports, I scare my dogs and wife sometimes with how angry I get. But it's all in good fun.
Oh
Hunter, thank
yeah.
you so much for being here. Where can people find you on social media or on Twitter and on your YouTube page?
Well, Twitter, if you're looking to follow what I do, you can follow me at the Cool Dude 52 and then just search Hunter Sheppard on YouTube. And I mean, the channel you find with all the highlights and whatnot, that is where you find all my sports highlights.
Very cool. Hunter, thanks so much for doing this, man. It's been awesome. And safe travels this week and the rest of the playoffs, man.